He is a virus-type mega-level Digimon that is hypothesized to be the ultimate Dramon and Cyber Digimon in general. When last we left, OMEGAMON has finally defeated, or at least has settled the area of the coastline. However, with the absence of Metal Seadramon vanishing, it's now set its sights on heading towards the Metal Empire area, where it knows the third Digimon of the Dark Masters is residing, this being Machinedramon. As OMEGAMON's thoughts have been clouded, as it remembers the time that it was once War Greymon and Melgarurumon, as it once battled with its friends in the same area that it was headed to, when it battled a Machinedramon so long ago. As if those memories have felt as they have been yesterday, however, it has been a very, very long time since then. As OMEGAMON's pondering of its past life has somewhat faded, as the two souls that are now permanently merged into one have been thinking about what it was like. However, not wanting to separate, they have decided to continue their crusade alongside Yggdrasil to save the digital world. However, upon arrival of the Metal Empire, it seems that much had changed, as before, only a few factories spread the area. However, OMEGAMON has found something surprising. Factories span the distance of the desert that used to reside here for so long ago. However, there are so many more factories now, as it simply looks industrial. Many span the area. As OMEGAMON's searches have begun for Machinedramon, we would pan out to find a familiar face that has been helping the Dark Masters, this being Warumanzemon. As Warumanzemon had been at least acting as a contact for the Dark Masters and the other Digimon in the area, it had begun to tell the D Brigade that is now under the control of Machinedramon in the Metal Empire that they had something to do, as there is something that they had to deal with in a factory not too long away, and they would need to defuse it, as there's something that they have to deal with. As Warumanzemon would disappear, a new Digimon would come into view, this being a Greymon. However, this Greymon isn't just an ordinary Greymon. This Greymon has actually been the same Dark Agumon from so long ago after OMEGAMON's return to the digital world, and subsequently, it has finally become a virus version Greymon, now working as a liaison alongside the D Brigade. Although it does not like Machinedramon, it understands the digital world's law of survival of the fittest, and has been working alongside the D Brigade as somewhat of an ally, as they would head to whatever they were directed to. As OMEGAMON had begun battle with the Metal Empire Digimon that were already under the tutelage or under the control of Machinedramon, as many different ultimate level Digimon tried to defeat OMEGAMON, it was clear that they possessed no more power, as they were easily defeated and slain. However, OMEGAMON knew that it must have been getting close, as it felt a feeling, a pit of terror coming from the area, as if something was doing something dangerous and destructive. As from underneath, OMEGAMON would be surprised, as different Digimon that reside in the Middle Empire were running for their lives. As their screams were telling them to get away, it was coming. OMEGAMON saw it, as it was rampaging through the buildings that had just destroyed. It was clear. This was something from its past. A monster that had once slain had now returned. This being in the form of the Dark Master, the Master of Terror itself, Machinedramon. As Machinedramon had been destroying many areas of the Middle Empire to extract data in its growing worry, as a new OMEGAMON would come. After Metal Seadramon's advance attack did not work, and Puppetmon failed to stop OMEGAMON, it knew that there was no time it would come here next, and it had been gaining energy as quickly as possible, destroying Digimon in areas to absorb it into its body, to give it the additional power it needs, as its size would grow. As Machinedramon at this point had actually doubled in its actual size, as other Digimon continued to run, as effectively Machinedramon had been terrorizing the citizens, or the Digimon that had designated the Metal Empire as their home, and had been making them into slaves, or at least those who would not serve it, into food. OMEGAMON, seeing this, would not let it slide, as Machinedramon's long-awaited duty was now going to be tested, as Machinedramon, as one of the third Dark Masters, boasts some of the most offensive capabilities, and OMEGAMON knows that firsthand. So, in order to defeat it, it would say its oath one more time, as this long-awaited battle from some time ago began, as in the name of the digital world, in the name of Yggdrasil, it was time for Machinedramon to be dispatched. However, Machinedramon was prepared, as its boasting size and new power meant that it was ready for an assault from a Digimon of Omegamon's caliber. As they began, their battle would shake the area, as although Omegamon is much faster than Machinedramon, its defensive capabilities, thanks to its many technological advancements, allows it to keep pace. It even taking damage and hits from Omegamon that most Digimon would shudder from, as their clashes would shock the area and distort the arenas. It was clear that the Metal Empire itself was in jeopardy, as Omegamon and Machinedramon could destroy it by just battling. And this came to a head when it was time, as the Garuru Cannon was fired and the Supreme Blast was meant to destroy Machinedramon. However, from its hyper cannons on its back, it was ready to fight back, as both fired at the most destructive cannons, as the Mugen Cannon would meet contact with the Supreme Cannon itself. And the shockwave was intense, as all that was seen was a bright light before Fireball was shown, as it seemed that the combined strength of both attacks had taken out the area around them, as it left nothing. However, for Machinedramon, this wasn't good, as although it had collected so much energy in order to battle Omegamon, this strength was fleeting. As Omegamon could tell, Machinedramon began to revert back to its normal size, as that power that it used up was used in that final attack. It returned to its normal size. Although being very tall and powerful anyways, it was much stronger than it needed to be, as Omegamon knew this was the time. Finally time to dispatch Machinedramon once again. However, this time would be much simpler, as the Grey Sword would carve it to pieces. However, before it was able to do an attack, Machinedramon told it to halt, as it had explained to Omegamon that it had to make a choice. As Machinedramon wasn't as dumb as the other two Dark Masters had fought, it had a backup plan, saying that there was a data mine placed into the Metal Empire area that was already about to be interacted with by their Digimon. For those who don't know, data mines used in the digital world can cause massive damage to the network and the area itself. For that sole reason, many aren't used, as it can cause distortions and cause massive damage in the digital world. However, Machinedramon said it didn't matter, as it told Omegamon if it was a hero, it would have to make a choice, that if the data mine went off where it was, and it wasn't stopped properly, there's a good chance it would wipe out not just the Metal Empire, but cause a fracture in the network itself. And it left Omegamon with a choice. However, Omegamon realized that if it dealt with Machinedramon, it could do both. But, as always, Warumanzemon had appeared already behind Machinedramon out of the sight of Omegamon, as it was time to get it out of here, as prior before these attacks, it wasn't yet time for the Dark Masters to deal and fight to the death with Omegamon, as the time was needed in order to save themselves, in order for the preparation of whatever their big plan was. And unfortunately for Omegamon, who descended to attack Machinedramon, it was too late. As already being engulfed in the warp gate, it was already very clear that Machinedramon was going to go, and it went away. As when Omegamon finally cleaved through, it had hit nothing, as both had disappeared, leaving Omegamon by itself. Knowing of what was told, it knew the damage that data mines could do, as although they weren't never really used in the time of Omegamon in the past, data mines were explained by Yggdrasil that if Omegamon ever had to hear of one, it should try and stop it or get anything out of the way, as data mines could damage the network that Yggdrasil has resided over. So in order to deal with it, Omegamon decided it was time to go and head back in the direction to maybe stop the data mine, as although for many, data mines are hard to detect unless they know what to do, Omegamon's able to search them out thanks to Yggdrasil being able to point out areas that it normally wouldn't be able to see. So it headed there. As in the distance, as the D Brigade was beginning to raid the warehouse where they were told to interact with whatever was inside, Greymon would stay outside in order to protect the area and conceal it from any other Digimon. However, in the distance, something was approaching, something it wasn't sure of what it was. However, as the D Brigade went inside, they found the data mine. However, they didn't know what it was, disguised as a bomb. The data mine seemed like anything else the D Brigade could deal with, so they prepared to defuse it as always, unknowing that if contacted in the wrong way, this would set it off. However, before Greymon could interact with whatever was coming down, it was shocked. It knew this Digimon. This was the Digimon that had saved it so long ago. This was Omegamon, and OMEGAMON made it clear to Greymon that they didn't have time to fight it. However, Greymon didn't have time to argue, as it was just happy to see OMEGAMON again, telling it that it probably doesn't remember it, but it remembers it, telling it that it would do anything it needs help to, as it was once its hero, and it would like to help again. Leaving them both to talk very quickly about the situation, as Greymon was terrified, knowing what data mines are. So as OMEGAMON landed down, Greymon agreed, as they decided to go in and try to stop them before they set off the data mine. Upon entering, OMEGAMON and Greymon smashed through, shocking the other D Brigade members as they were wondering what Greymon was doing. However, when Greymon explained what the situation to the D Brigade, they were actually pretty terrified themselves, as they were about to interact with it, which would have set it off, as OMEGAMON told them to hurry and leave and evacuate as many as they could, as they can get as far away as possible, because even if OMEGAMON tries to get rid of the data mine, there's no guarantee that it would be able to stop it from going off, and it would claim a lot of Digimon. So many began to evacuate as they all ran away, leaving OMEGAMON and Greymon behind. Greymon asked OMEGAMON how it would defuse it, but that was something that it would not need to know, as OMEGAMON told it to leave as well, as the data mine doubled in size, as Machinedramon wasn't joking. This thing was really meant to take out the Metal Empire and then some. As OMEGAMON told Greymon to get out of there, it said it would deal with it, as Greymon ran outside to go with the D Brigade. OMEGAMON, surprising itself, would lift up the data mine, believing the best option would be to take it as far into the sky as possible. If this thing went off, at least it would have to be given something to extract, so that meant it would have to destroy it. But if it tried to destroy it inside the Metal Empire, that would just leave a big problem in itself. So in order to get the data mine to where it needed to be, OMEGAMON launched into the air as fast as possible. As it smashed through the warehouse's opening, a crack appeared, terrifying OMEGAMON, but understood what it had to do as it kept on going forward. As many from the outside saw OMEGAMON ascend, they felt their hearts stop, realizing that if the data mine went off, they would go as well. However, Greymon felt something deep down, something pressing itself to go further. As it saw its hero try and help and save it again in its home, it felt it, and it pressed even further, as all of a sudden Greymon was engulfed in a power it had known, in mechanical power, allowing it access to hit past its previous limits. As OMEGAMON would reach up as high as it can into the air, it got to a point where it realized that it was probably the best, as the data mine was probably about to go off. However, something was coming from the ground. Something shot its way up. This was Metal Greymon. This was the newly powered up Greymon, as it found the power it needed to surpass its limits. However, spouting the virus colors, it was ready. As the data mine finally reached its limits and the crack was too deep, OMEGAMON threw it, telling Metal Greymon that the only way to stop it would be to diffuse it with more data than it needed, so the data mine would only extract useless data. So, in order to do that, OMEGAMON threw it and told Metal Greymon to attack it with everything it had. As a supreme cannon was fired on a constant basis, Metal Greymon decided to test out its new power, as its Giga Blaster was used. However, the Giga Blasters then molted into the Giga Storm, causing even more power, allowing it to hold it off. But this was bad, as although the two attacks were making much contact and allowing the data mine to absorb it, it still was going to go off, as there was nothing more in terms of their powers that they could add, as they still needed more data to throw into it with their attacks, as even with them pushing themselves to the limit, there needed to be more. And as everything seemed lost before the data mine exploded, something happened. A large, massive fireball had rammed itself right into the data mine itself, adding enough power. As all three attacks would conjoin, it was more than enough to push the data mine up. However, the data mine did explode. However, it was forced to absorb the impacts of the attacks, which eventually sent our heroes crashing to the ground. However, before making land, Metal Greymon turned back into Greymon, as it was able to save itself from being destroyed. And OMEGAMON, although not crashing into the ground, made it very clear that it almost hit the ground from that explosion. Although they were unsure where the fireball had come from, they understood that it was enough to save them, and it kept the Metal Empire from being destroyed. As OMEGAMON would converse with Greymon and the D Brigade, it would tell them that they would be in charge of the Metal Empire, at least for now, as it needed them to create some stability, as if Machinedramon were to return, it would do this again and probably wipe out the population. This making the D Brigade very scared, as they had only aligned themselves with Machine Dramon, as Machine Dramon had offered them wealth, as the D Brigades are, for the most part, soldiers for hire. As Greymon agreed, it would help fight in the battle against Machine Dramon, as although OMEGAMON kind of shrugged it off, saying it couldn't do that in any capacity, said not to worry. It would said it just get as strong as its hero, and one day fight alongside it. As OMEGAMON said, there was not much time. It needed to depart in order to head somewhere else, as it sensed that there was more danger. As the others would watch, as OMEGAMON took to the skies once again and flew off. However, this wouldn't last, as OMEGAMON would immediately be pulled into the space where Yggdrasil resides, or at least the form that it sees, as Yggdrasil would need to talk to OMEGAMON about something important that's going on, and explain what it had gathered in terms of the knowledge around the digital world. As we would pan away, we would see the castle that now possesses all four of the Dark Masters. As the Dark Master Piedmon was laughing, as it said everything was going according to plan. And the hero itself would come to them, and they wouldn't have to do anything else. As Warumanzemon stood alongside the hero and its heroes in terms of the view. However, the enemy of the digital world was beginning to mass, as these four Dark Masters had cooked up some type of plan that no one had known about. And as we would finally pan away from them, it was seen as we would finally return to the outskirts of the Metal Empire, and a Digimon would be seen walking. Unknowing to us, this Digimon was going to play a part, as it would simply smile and laugh, saying that although OMEGAMON is strong, it couldn't do it alone. And for our heroes, we'll have to figure out what happens in the next one. So, this is Brad from the Ad Army signing off. And for all of you out there, to sign on.